What's going on, everyone, and welcome to Poppy TV. I'm your host Poppy, and welcome to another episode where we see Okinawa through my eyes. So I'm just here. It's a pretty hot weekend. I'm just chilling. Decided I'm going to do another vlog video, another East versus West vlog video, and this time we're going to be talking about marriage and family, East versus West, right? In my opinion, and this is just speculation, this is just my opinion, just a disclaimer, just to put it out there, this is not fact, this is just my views and thoughts on it, right? So in my opinion, in contemporary American culture, especially with the advent of the internet, social media, and what have you, I think marriage and family has been romanticized to a point. I believe that, and I think that globalization, social media, internet has, in a way, changed what marriage and family was. And I think one of the changes that globalization and social media has, and it comes into play with the romanticization of marriage, right, in TV shows and what have you, is that I think that people get married too quickly and people divorce too quickly as well. And they put kids in situations or in a lot of relationships that aren't really well built, in my opinion, right? So I think that's what's been going on in America so far. I mean, outside of maybe certain minority groups or certain religious groups that are more conservative, more traditional, I think in general people are just having kids outside of marriages, inside of marriages, that may or may not necessarily be solid, or getting married because they're in love, or getting divorced because they don't know how to work it out, or various situations, various other reasons, right? In Okinawa, however, I guess in a lot of ways you could say Okinawan culture is still a decade or two in the past. I think Okinawan culture is more conservative, where the man is a breadwinner and the woman is more of the homemaker. And interestingly enough, Japan has been having a decrease in marriage, a decrease in birth rate overall. But out of the 47 prefectures in Japan, the only place that has an increase in birth rate, or has a steady high birth rate rather, is Okinawa, right? And a lot of it has to do with, in my opinion, Okinawa in and of itself, in a lot of ways, isn't really Japanese. Some people might not consider them truly Japanese, because their culture, because I think back in the end of the 19th century, they were taken over, they were annexed into the Empire of Japan, right? But before that, they were the Ryukyu Kingdom, and you can watch some of my videos on the first king of Ryukyu. And basically, they were just, I think they were a vassal state of China, or rather, they were heavily connected to China, and they were just a trade route between China and Japan a long time ago. So a lot of the culture is still embedded in Okinawa today, even though it is a part of Japan, right? Yes, Okinawa is more traditionalist and more conservative in terms of marriage and whatnot compared to America. What I mean by traditionalist or conservative, not necessarily in the fact that Okinawans only can marry Japanese people, because Okinawans, there's a lot of mixed blended couples in Okinawa, military members and Okinawans, right? There's a whole lot of them here. And I think in both cultures, both in American society and both in Okinawan society, let me turn down the window, it's pretty hot. Oof, I'm sweating. I think in American society and in Japanese society or Okinawan society, I think marriage is still pushed on the young people, right? I think it's still pushed. But one of the key differences, I believe, that influences marriages, birth rates, and relationships in Okinawa versus America is that I think in America, I think people in general want to establish themselves with a job, a good paying job. A job, especially as much as people can, they want a job that has self-actualization, that gives them self-actualization. For those of you who are familiar with business studies, right, business management, you know, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I think it goes like food is at the bottom. I forgot how it is, but I know at top that pretty much 90% of people in life don't achieve. It's self-actualization. That's the point at which, like, you're successful, you're financially stable, you're doing something that you love to do, and you're just happy with what you do, and no amount of money can change that. You're already at the apex of, I guess, life. You pretty much win, right? That's self-actualization. And I think a lot of people in life don't actually make it. We try to strive for it, but only a very few actually make it, right? But either way, I think that's the priority for most Americans. They want to have a job, they want to have a career before they start a family. In Okinawa, however, I think the apex of life is having a family, and having a job is more of a necessity to support that goal. You know what I mean? So for example, so to kind of solidify my argument why I say this, I did a project in one of my anthropology classes, right? And it was pretty much asking the importance of filial piety. Filial piety, that's another word that I've talked about on my channel. You can check out my video on filial piety, actually, right? So in my research, right, my sample size consisted of, I think, it wasn't a big sample size. So I think my sample size is about, I want to say 8, consisted of 4 women and 4 men, Okinawan men, 4 women, or yeah, consisted of 4 Okinawan women, 4 Okinawan men. The age ranges was like, the youngest was like 27 and the oldest was like 60 something. And I pretty much asked them like a series of questions, like, how important is filial piety to you? Do you know what it is? Like, how important is family to you? What do you think is the most important thing, family or having a good job? And across the board, for men and women, the most important thing was having a family, having kids, right? So not only is marriage and having a family in Okinawa important just out of the sake of quote unquote love, right? If you watched a lot of my other videos, or if you're just familiar with Japanese culture in general, having a family is important because, and especially having a firstborn son, because in Okinawan culture, and in Japanese culture too, but in Okinawan culture, it's the firstborn son that carries on the duties of his father, right? So in Okinawan culture, when you look at festivals like Obon and what have you, the son inherits the eldest son inherits the father's worldly goods, like his real estate, his money, his rights to certain properties and whatnot. But the eldest son also has the responsibility of taking care of his father's shrine when he dies, and taking care of pretty much his family line. So it's a heavy responsibility, but it's also needed to carry on his family line. That's why it's so important for, you know, a man, Okinawan man, to have a son to kind of carry on his family name, right? And this is also a thing that I've heard in Jamaican culture too, in the old times, where people would have a bunch of kids in hopes that, oh, like, you know, my kid will grow up and become a doctor or a lawyer and take care of me when I get older. And that's also a big thing in China right now. And if any of you guys know about the one-child policy that they had back then, I think right now they have a three-child policy, because they have a really bad situation now where they don't have enough women for the men to marry. And in China, from what I've heard, shout out to Laozi86 and Serpent ZA. I watch your channels a lot. So pretty much the issue in China is that there's not enough women for men to marry. So there is a crisis right now where I think in China, most of the burden of taking care of the elderly Chinese citizens is on the families of those elderly Chinese citizens. So if there isn't any kids, when you get old, you're not going to have anybody to take care of you. So yes, family in East Asian societies, and a lot of East Asian societies, especially in Okinawa, is important because it provides utility. If you get old, you have someone to take care of you. It provides a way as a male to transfer your family name, to transfer your goods, to ensure that your family line is secured. And just in general, it's just a culture of family, right? So having a big family is encouraged in Okinawa. Whereas I think in America, it's more so, you know, rising costs of everything kind of discourages people from having big families, where Okinawans are still having big families in spite of, you know, growing prices. So that's a little, you know, difference that I think is pretty interesting for people to know. It's a pretty interesting topic to look into. And yeah, that's all I have for today. Remember to stay blessed and stay tuned, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.